Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Ready or not, here we go. Well, I hope you're ready. It is Sabbath, and I'm so excited to start Sabbath. I'm starting 3 minutes early. So, of course, I have a lot to get to tonight. It's going to be a bit of just kind of uh, hyperactive to get through all the things I want to talk about tonight. So, let's get right at it. Hopefully, I'm coming in clear for everybody. Have fun in the chat tonight. Let's have good conversation. We are in week 2 of Deuteronomy. That's just week 45 overall of the Torah portions. We'll be covering chapter 3, verse 23 through 7:11. Imagine if imagine if 9/11 had happened on 7/11. Think of all that rebranding that would have to happen. All right. Well, the first thing I want to talk about tonight is the Unexpected Cosmology Retreat. 2025. This will be March 26th through the 30th. It'll be Wednesday, March 26th through Sunday, the 30th in Lake Fort Smith State Park, Arkansas. So put it on your calendars. I am not selling tickets yet. I still have some things to put in order, figure everything out, but it is greenlit. It is a go. It is reserved. We have this. It's going to be a couple lodges and a beautiful state park there. So, if you celebrate a different Passover will fall for us on Friday evening. That would be the 28th. And of course, Saturday will be the day of unleavened bread, high Sabbath. And it's just going to be a really great I've been talking a couple years now about doing a conference, and I've been looking at a lot of different options. Last year, my wife and I were taking it seriously. We were scouting out locations in both Florida and Charleston. We were thinking Orlando, and we decided that I think what Tuck, the community, we are a community here, and that's what I want to focus on, our strength as a community. And I think what everybody really wants is a family gathering, one where we see each other in person, many people for the first time, and we just spend a few days just having good fellowship. So, and of course, we're going to be breaking bread together, having Passover meal together, and reading the Bible together, that kind of stuff. So put it on your calendars. I'll be talking more about it in the weeks to come. And also, I'll be giving all ministry supporters, Patreon and so on, first digs at this when I do come out with the tickets. There will be, there's only 60 tickets available for the lodge. It's not that I'm trying to be cruel. I'm actually renting 2 lodges side by side. And in the state park, that's all they have, these 2 lodges. The good news is that even if the 60 tickets do fill, it's a campground. There's RV sites and cabins, so you could actually go rent any of those yourself and stay in them. And we're not going to. You're basically the ticket prices are going to be covering the lodge and the food and so on and so forth. So, yeah. All right. And then you can see kind of where it's at over here, Lake Fort Smith State Park. It is just east of Tulsa, just south of Missouri and Springfield, and it's kind of on the western end of the Ozarks, right there off the 40. It's Sarah and I realized last year we host every year Passover, and we realized last year we were kind of filling up our house to the brim, to the point that it was becoming kind of an issue, and we realized we were outgrowing our house. We love to host Passover, so we decided to do something more centrally located, especially since in Charleston, it's easy to get to Charleston, right off the I-95. Of course, we have an airport here, but it's not exactly cheap if you're flying into our little airport. So hopefully there's maybe some better options to get here, whether you fly into maybe Little Rock or wherever you fly in here, Tulsa, Memphis, wherever, Springfield, and just kind of drive in. So looking forward to that. Spring 2025, put on your calendars. Another thing I want to announce tonight is 1 week from this Sunday, August 25th, is the International Baptism event. And I think Adam Fink of Parable of the Vineyard will be talking about this probably tonight, probably right now. And so all across the world at 12 noon on this day, there's going to be baptisms. I've been asked to sponsor or represent South Carolina, so I'm happy to do that. And then we have Polly Hart representing Savannah, Georgia, and Michael. needs no introduction in this group. He will be hosting in Arkansas. And so if you are in any, now you look at this information right here. I think you maybe scan that on in front of you. I'm not sure. You can see the website right there, Ancient Path revivals.com. You can look at upcoming events and look at where there is a baptism event near you. Even if you don't want to be baptized, maybe you just want to go and be a part of the fellowship. Yeah, go do it. I'm telling you all right now, and I've said this many times before, that baptism isn't, in my opinion, it is not a one-time event. That's kind of the Protestant world we grew up in. Maybe if you grew up Catholic or Lutheran or something like that, you were this idea of being baptized as a baby, with the sprinkling of water. I was baptized, but I was also baptized again 2-3 years ago. And just if you want to be purified, ritually purified, you want to, repent, rededicate your life, whatever, go get baptized again. I've said this week after week after week, that before I come live in front of you, I go and I ritually cleanse myself, and just that's, before I come before you guys. I just think it's really important. Now here in Charleston, this is where you can, I do live right on the water. And as I mentioned before, it is a preserve and there are alligators out there. So I don't know if I feel comfortable going and see. My wife was like, why don't you just go out? I'm like, no, what, do you want to go out there and baptize people? And she's like, no. And I'm like, exactly. I'm not going to go, I'm going to be like looking over my shoulder to see if something's coming at me. So you might not even see it. I might just get pulled under. Right. So, we will not go to alligator infested water. We will be going to Isle of Palms in South Carolina. And I'll dunk you in the waves over there. So again, if you're interested, contact me. I'll be happy to take part in that. All right. So the next order of business tonight, I told you we have a lot to get to tonight. You can see here, this is where we're at for the month. Now we are a ministry that is, we have Rebecca and of course Pamela. And Pamela is doing these translations in the paleo, and she's not asking for anything. And if we can meet this goal every month, because this ministry, of course, feeds my family. If we can meet this goal, we're 2 weeks into the month, we're halfway there. You can see where we're at right now, what we need left. Whatever we go over goes to Pamela. And I think I told you last week, we were able to give her 1,122 last month, but the month before that, 2,226. We had a really good month 2 months ago. And we just want to see this continue. We hope the Unexpected Cosmology will be going for many, many more years. And I have, Yah willing, I have so many dreams and visions for where I want to take this ministry in ways that brings people into a relationship with Yah. So I just want to show you a couple of even Rebecca's projects that she's been working on. She just released this. Can you guys see this? Heidi was a passion project for Rebecca. She asked me, like, hey, what do you feel about me doing Heidi? I'm like, yeah, go for it. And so we just released this, and she does top-notch, beautiful work. This one here, we haven't even talked about this enough. The Witness of the Stars by Bollinger. And E.W. Bollinger, of course, was a card-carrying flat earthist. He actually subscribed to the Earth Not a Globe review. And this right here, let's see, can you guys see this? Travels in Noah into Europe. And she assures me that this is the best translation out there. Like, you're not going to find a better, more accurate. I mean, she painstakingly searched this motionless plane to get a clean copy of the most historically accurate. And she was looking at all the other stuff people are out there reading. She's like, the translation's bad. Like, there are a lot of inaccuracies in these other translations. So this is not copy and paste stuff. Like, she is putting a lot of work into this. Anyways, before we get going, I'm going to play you this message from Polly Hart. And of course, he's one of the elders here. So I think I'm still going to be on screen. So you're going to have to awkwardly stare at me while maybe I'll do like a little screen reaction or whatever. But here we go.
Hey, it's Polly Hart here. I've been given the opportunity to ask you to pray about giving to the orphans and the widows. Once again, we know that the word was sent forth and healed our dis-ease. And when the word was sent forth, that was the word out of the very mouth of our Father. We think about the idea that the invisible world is always more potent than the physical world. When any building is built, it exists in the spiritual world, the invisible world, before it exists in the physical world. And so the spiritual laws are in effect the law of the garden. Given it will be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will men give unto your bosom. From the same manner that you give, it will be given back to you. So that's what I'm after. I'm after your success. And so if you'd like to go to the Unexpected Cosmology, there's a link there to give to the widows. We're actually doing great works with widows. We have 2 widows now that are with us, and we're blessing them, and they're working with us, and it's wonderful. I'm sure you all know Rebecca and Pamela. Sorry, just be proper. I always every time I make that mistake in my mind, I always think of when Cindy in the Brady Bunch, she's like Cynthia. But I know that's not how Pamela is. But I was like, oh, I just want to make sure I say it right. I don't want to offend anybody. But I do know that not only is Pamela and Rebecca being blessed, or they being blessed, inventive and creative ways for Noel and his family to become blessed are happening as well. When was it, Jennifer? When did I give all those books? Was it a month and a half ago or 2 months ago? When Noel came down?
That was more than 2 months.
More than 2 months ago. So anyway, I gave Noel just like all of my books, because I was like, oh, I don't have any money right now. It's all tied up in this house I'm trying to build. And so I gave it to them. And so one of my books, sometimes I write tiny stories that I can get an author's copy for $2.50. It's out of print, and it's out of print on purpose because I don't want those stories in the general public's hands. But I had like 8 copies left, so there you go. So Rebecca, she gets them because Noel shipped them all to her, because I just had him take them home with him in his truck. This is what I can give. So, and it's just interesting. This is an inventive way to not only bless someone but to give to someone. So, they arrive at Rebecca's house, and she sent me a picture of them all on her table. She's like, Polly, what? I'm like, oh yeah, oops, some of those aren't really for Christians. So she's like, okay, write me the blurb. So I wrote all these blurbs, and she puts them in the store. And I said, listen, sometimes I write tiny stories. You really should charge $100 for it. I'm not even kidding, because that's out of print. It's never going to go back into print. And if it does, it's going to have a tweaked title, and it's going to be completely rewritten on the inside. So it was $100. And so Noel, just the other day, I think maybe Monday or last weekend, he says, hey, you weren't kidding. We sold the book for $100. So I can print that book for $250. And so from $250 to $100, to me, I've done an 800 or 800% return on investment is the ROI. So I've done an 800% ROI before. This is a 3,900% ROI. So that's Temperance. Little TT. Her name is Temperance Tempest. 3,900% return on investment. So Yahuwah is teaching me about exponential levels of growth in my own personal finances because I gave. And I did not expect it. Now, I didn't reap that return, but the law is proven. The law of the garden was proven. Remember the garden? Everything you can have for free. Everything for free sounds like a good deal. Yet what did the Hasatan get Eve to focus on was the one in the middle that she couldn't eat. So when you focus on your lack, you are always going to be the loser, right? Remember this, that Yeshua has a plan for your life. He loves you. Hasatan has a plan for your death. He hates you. Kind of an easy choice. And yet some people are like, oh, you know what I'm thinking right now? I'm just going to go ahead and choose the devil's side. So he wants us to be stingy and miserly and hateful. And a lot of us who have been impoverished in the past view the wealthy and the people who have as like stingy and miserly, and those are the evil. So there's two types of good. There's two types of rich people. I'm not doing Satan horns. Okay, how's that? Probably should devil worship. So there's two types of people that are rich in the world. There's those who love people and use the wealth the good way, and then there's who love the wealth and use the people, like the guy I work for. Oh, I've got stories for you. Anyway, so we need to just think about, hey, what did Joseph do to his brothers? What did Joseph do to his dad when they had thrown him into the well? And he puts the money back into the bags of grain. Remember what he said? What you have meant for evil, he has meant for good. It could be the same exact circumstance, the same exact thing. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's exactly how it happened. Story is true. It doesn't differentiate. But the purposes, it's the same story, but the purposes of Yahuwah versus the enemy, the accuser of the brethren, are completely the opposite. Remember when what's it? I can't remember if it was the Pharisees and Sadducees and hey, who sinned? I'm talking to Yeshua. Who sinned? This man was born blind, and Yeshua's like, nobody sinned. He was born blind so that the power of Yahuwah could be revealed. So that's what we think about. We think about, I'm gonna give. I'm gonna get over myself and give. And this isn't like prosperity gospel. This is like, I'm not asking you to tithe. We don't have a temple. There's no Sanhedrin. There's no priest. There's no high priest right now on earth. And so I can't tithe, but I can give. I'm going to give my alms. And the law of sowing and reaping, the law of the garden, the law of the farmer, it is never ending. It's just like density and buoyancy. Something holds water down, something pulls water up. It's the same thing. It's never going to change. Seed time and harvest will never change until the end comes, and then of course everything's going to change. But yeah, is that tomorrow? I don't know. Maranatha. Anyway, I love you guys. Have a great day, and be blessed and not stressed.
Oh, I was on mute, but yeah, thank you. That could have gone bad if nobody came up, if I kept talking for like 20 or 30 minutes, and you just saw my lips moving. Anyways, I thank you, Polly. He's a good friend of mine, and he wanted to give that message, and I'm very grateful for him. So let's get right into this reading right now. Oh yeah, I did want to mention one more thing. I'm going to have an announcement a couple weeks from now, and hopefully, Yah willing, we're going to have, as an extension of this ministry at the Unexpected Cosmology, we're going to have a dating website up. And for all you Hebrews and Hebrews out there, we're going to have a dating website, and I'll have more information again, Yah willing. I'll take you guys on a tour of it. Keep a lookout in the next couple of weeks. So a lot of exciting things in our future here. So here we are, Deuteronomy 3:23 through 7:11. Let's go ahead and read this. And I entreated for mercy from Al Yahuwah at that time to say, Adanuya Yahuwah, you have begun to reveal unto your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For from what Al in Shamayam and upon Arats is there who fashions like your words and like unto your military might. I would pass over, I beseech you, and I would observe the excellent land, which is the region beyond the Yarden, that beautiful mountain, and Ha Labanu'an. But Yahuwah, the ever-living, was angry with me on account of you and would not hear an answer toward me. Enough of you. Do not continually add any more plans towards me on this matter. Ascend to the head of the Fazagaha and lift up your eyes seaward and northward and southward and toward the place of the rising sun and observe with your eyes, for you shall not pass over this Yarden. And command Yahushai, and that's, of course, Joshua or Yahushua, and strengthen him, for he shall pass over to the face of the people, and he shall cause them to receive an inheritance, the land which you shall observe. And we settled down to dwell in the valley over against Baath Peor. And now hear and understand and obey, O Yasharel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I shall teach you, for fashioning them, in order that you may exist and walk in them and inherit the land which Yahuwah, the Allahiyah of your fathers, gives unto you. And you shall not increase over the hadabar, which I command you. And you shall not scratch off, withhold, make less from any part of him, to guard commandments of Yahweh your Allahaya, which I have commanded you. Your eyes have observed what Yahweh the ever-living did fashion upon Baal, Fa'er. For all those men who followed after Baal, Fa'er, Yahweh the ever-living destroyed them from your midst. But you who clung upon Yahweh your Allahaya are living, all of you, this day. Observe, I have taught you the statutes and judgments like that which Yahweh my Allah has commanded for you to fashion in that manner, in the midst of the land where you go there to inherit, and guard them and fashion them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding. You could almost say Chakamaha there. And your understanding in the eyes of the people which shall hear, understand, and obey all these statutes. And he shall declare, surely this is a wise and understanding people and a great nation. So pause here. Imagine if you were you're actually standing here and you're listening to the speech. And you're one of those, it's almost unfortunate that Balaam came along when a lot of the children who were born right as they were leaving Egypt, they're now in their kind of late pubescent teenage years, and their hormones are just flaring because, all these beautiful women come in, right, and tempt them. And, imagine, you men out there, imagine if you were 17, 18 years old and you have these beautiful women just, coming up to you and just throwing themselves at you, right? Like that's like almost like a fantasy scenario for a lot of young men. And it literally happened. But there were these men who were like, no, I'm not going to do this. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to be obedient to Yah, and this is not right. And so imagine if you're standing in this scenario and Moshe is speaking and he's like, you guys, everyone who disobeyed, they're all dead. And you saw it happen. And this would just, I'm just trying to like imagine what my psyche would be like, what would be going through my thoughts of going like, yeah, like I'm crossing over that Jordan River and I'm going to continue being obedient and this enemy is going to be wiped out. Like I've seen what happens to those who do away with the Torah. It never ends well for them. And we're going to come in and like Yah's going to go in front of us and just going to wipe these people out. Continuing reading. For from what great nation has unto them an Allahayam who draws near toward them like Yahweh or Allahaya, in all are calling out toward him? And from what great nation is there which has to them statutes and judgments like all this Torah which I give unto your face this day? Now, I was reflecting on this during the study, and I'm like, yeah, like who else has, what other Allahayam has given these instructions in righteous living like this? I'm trying to think like what other, if I were to, Yah forbid, make some sort of covenant with another God, what kind of guidelines would I have to go with? And again, I guess this is just the preacher side of me, because I really, really like, I have a calling that I want people to repent of their sins. I really want people to choose to do right. That's why I'm here. I want to give every opportunity for people to choose to do right and obey the commands. Because I don't want people to get to that judgment seat and go, oh, like I'm hoping that if they get there, it's because they made a conscious decision to disobey, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, I screwed that one up. Like I knew better. And here's the thing, like Yahuwah, there's no one else out there like him. He is an amazing, amazing Allahayam or Elohim. And not that I come down on this a lot, but it's funny. Like we all see it out there. The people who hate the Torah, they hate this, that this Allahayam has done this, that he has given these amazing instructions that they don't want to live by, because most other religions, they don't have it like this. I mean, you read the Quran, it's not even like this. He's just an amazing Allahayam. I love him more every day. Only keep watch of yourselves and guard your nefesh exceedingly, fearful lest you forget the Dabarayam, which your eyes have observed, and dread lest they go away from your heart all the days of your life. And teach them unto your sons and unto your sons' sons, the day which you endured to the face of Yahweh your Allahayah in Harab, when he declared toward me, call together for me the people, and I will cause them to hear, understand, and obey my word, which I set in order, that they may train themselves to reverently fear me all the days which they live upon the red ground. And their sons they will also teach. And you drew near, and you took a stand below the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire as far as the heart of Shamayam, along with Chesak, the cloud mass, and Eriphel. Now you can see I highlighted there because I would just like, boom, I just had this mind-blowing moment when I read that. I'm like, oh my goodness. And the description here at a Sinai is that, or Sinaia, is that this fire that is burning, it's like, Pamela almost described it like a tornado or something. Like it's like a funnel of fire that goes all the way up. Like you would see this thing for miles. I would imagine that if you were in the Sinai Peninsula over there with Baal Zephon, that mountain, the two mountains that, from the top of Baal Zephon, you could see Sinai. Like you would see this. People would see it from miles around. They would all know that this is going on. But I'll be talking about the Eriphel and Chesak in a little bit. And Yahweh, your Allahayah, set a word and order toward you from the midst of the fire. A voice you did hear, understand, and answer. But none of you observed a form except the voice. And he, conspicuously in the sight of all, declared unto you his Barath, or Barayath, his covenant, which he commanded you to fashion. 10 ha-dabariam, and he wrote them upon two tablets of stone. And at that time, Yahweh, the ever-living, commanded me that I teach you the statutes and judgments for your fashioning them in the land where you pass over there to possess her. And you have been exceedingly watchful of your nephath. I just want to see what note she puts there. Okay, your plural for nephash. You observed no form on the day Yahweh, the ever-living, set words in order toward you upon Harab from the midst of the fire. Beware lest you destroy yourselves, and you fashion unto you a graven image of form or any likeness, whether an image of male or perhaps female, the form of any beast which is upon Arats, the form of any winged fowl which flies through the heavens, the Shamayam, the form of any creeper upon the red ground, the form of any fish in the waters from the lower parts of the earth, and fear, lest you lift up your eyes into Ha-Shamayam and observe Ha-Shamash and Ha-Yarak and the round shining stars, all the host of Ha-Shamayam, or the heavens, and you are impelled to bow yourself down to them and serve them, which Yahweh, your Allahayah, has divided them as a powerful sign unto all the peoples under the whole of Ha-Shamayam. But Yahweh, the ever-living, has taken you out from the iron furnace, from Mitzrayim, the bitter enemy beyond the sea, to exist unto him for a people, an inheritance like it is this day. And Yahweh, the ever-living, breathed out anger upon me over your matters, and he swore for my not passing over Yarden, and for my not going toward that excellent land which Yahweh, your Allahayah, will give to you as an inheritance. For I will die in this land, I will not pass over. Of course, you guys know that Moshe didn't pass over. Just giving you some context there. And you shall seize that excellent land, and you shall keep watch for yourselves, fearing lest you forget the Barayath, the covenant of Yahweh, your Allahayah, which he cut with you, and you fashion them for yourselves a graven image or the form of anything, which is a command of Yahweh, your Allahayah. For Yahweh, your Allahayah, is a consuming fire. He is a jealous owl. When you bring forth sons and sons, and you grow old, languid in the land, and they destroy themselves and fashion a graven image or the form of anything, and shall fashion evil, noxious, hurtful misfortune in the eyes of Yahweh, your Allahayah, to provoke him, I once again call upon heaven and earth, or Shamayam and Arats, to stand witness against you this day, that perishing you shall be utterly destroyed, speedily, from over the land where you pass over the Yarden, there to seize her as a possession. You shall not prolong your days upon her, but perishing you shall perish. And Yahuwah the ever-living shall disperse you among the peoples, and you shall remain men few and tally among the nations, where Yahuwah shall drive you there. And there you will serve Allahayam from the fashioning of Adam's hands, wood and stone, which do not see and does not hear, understand or respond, and does not eat, and does not smell. But if you seek from there Yahuwah your Allahayah, then you will find him if you will trample about, seeking, inquiring with all your heart and with all your nephash. When distress comes to you and you find all these matters in the future days and turn back into Yahuwah your Allahayah, and you hear, understand, and obey his voice. For Yahuwah your Allahayah is a merciful Al. He will never let down, cast off, or desert you, and he shall not destroy you, and he shall not forget the covenant of your fathers, which he solemnly swore unto them. For ask, I beseech you, of the days, the first ones, which existed before your face, of what days since Allahayam created Adam upon the earth, and from what extremity of heaven, or the Ha-Shamayam, and into the other extremity of Ha-Shamayam, has any matter existed as this great matter, or perhaps has been heard, has understood, or has answered like this? Let me just pause here. I don't know if you guys are noticing, but he's talking about us. He's talking about our generation. I'll be highlighting a little bit more of this right now in this little season. But this is something that, like, I would like to, when people are constantly doing away with the Torah, they're just, I liken it to people taking mud, or really poo. They're flinging poo and just flinging it against the wall to see what sticks. They're just desperate for something to stick. And these arguments are constantly being debunked, all the different ways that the Torah was done away with. And they just keep coming up with new things. They're trying to find something somewhere to justify their lifestyle. And this right here, he says in the later days, he's talking about Israel. And it's like, well, wait a second here. He says that he's going to remember the covenant with their fathers, they're returning to him and his ways. Like, who are these people? What? I mean, is Israel separate from the Goyim? Can we explain this? Who's Israel? If we're not supposed to be grafted in, who is Israel? Who are these people being called back to him? And I love this. He's like saying, look, I'm going to be a merciful Allahayam with you. I'm going to be, I'm going to be slow to anger. I'm going to be gentle with you. You're going to wake up you're going to wake up in some future time in this foreign land. You've been expelled. You don't even know who you are anymore. You're worshiping these idols, and you're going to turn to me and pronounce my name. And he's going to say this throughout Deuteronomy. We'll see this time and again. And you're going to pronounce my name, and you're going to come to me, and I'm going to be a merciful God to you. I love this. It's beautiful. Have people ever before heard, understood, and answered the voice of Allahayam from the purpose plan, from the midst of the fire, like that which you have heard, understood, and answered, and still existed? Or perhaps has Allahayam lifted up to go in and take for himself a nation from the midst of another nation, and trials with signs and with splendid deeds, and through war, and with a strong hand and a stretched out arm, and with great terrors, like all which Yahuwah your Allahayah has fashioned for you in Mitzrayim before your eyes? You have observed to acknowledge that Yahuwah, the ever-living, he is Ha-Allahayam. None from beside him. Out from Ha-Shamayam. He caused you to hear his voice for your instruction. And upon Ha-Arat, he has shown you his great fire. And out of the midst of the fire, he caused you to hear, to understand, and to respond to his direction. Man, I wish I could have seen that. Wish I could have seen that fire. I just constantly try to imagine what that was like. For the sake of his love for your fathers, therefore, he selected upon their seed after them, and he caused you to go forth before his face with his mighty power, from Mitzrayim to dispose or dispossess nations, greater ones and ones more numerous than you, from before your face, to bring you, to give unto you their land as an inheritance, as it is this day. Now, keep in mind, of course, we'll see later on in Deuteronomy that Yahuwah inherited this land. This is his land. And, I think there's a lot to it that Ham basically went in and, possessed this land. And we know that he turned over a lot of thrones. And you have acquired knowledge this day and turned back toward your heart. For Yahuwah, he is Allahayam in Shamayam in the highest and upon the earth, Ha'aratz. There is none besides him. And you have guarded his statutes and his commandments, which I charge you this day, that he will be good to you and to your sons after you, and your purpose being to prolong your days upon the red ground, which is Yahuwah your Allah has given to you all your days. At that time, Mashahah separated 3 cities in this region of the Yarden toward the rising of Shamash. For there shall the killer which kills his fellow without intent, and he who did not have hatred in his heart for him from a prior time, and he shall there escape toward one of these cities and so live. Batzar in the wilderness, in the level land of the Ra'abanua, and Ramath in Gilead, and Gedaliah, Gulan in Bashan of the Manushaya. I would be really interested. I've never looked into this, if these 3 cities have been identified. The last week of Numbers was the week I was in YouTube jail, and we had a special, just a little meeting in my talk community. So if you're not a part of the Discord, please come in and be a part of it. You totally missed out. We didn't skip a beat. We were there, and in the ending of Numbers, it talks about how there were actually 6 of these sanctuary cities. There were 3 on the east of the Jordan, 3 on the west of the Jordan. And I commented at that time, it's really interesting that it's the number 6, the number of man. There wasn't 7 or anything more. It was 6 sanctuary cities. And this is the Torah which Mashahah put in place to the face of the sons of Yasharel. These are the precepts and the statutes and the judgments which Mashahah directed towards the sons of Yasharel upon their going forth from Mitzrayim, in the region beyond the Yarden Valley before Beath Payar, in the land of Seacon, Malak of the Amariah, who had settled down to dwell in Chashabon, whom Mashahah and the sons of Yasharel smote in their going forth from Mitzrayim. And they seized as possession his land, in the land of Og, Malak of the Bashan, which were on this side of the Yarden, toward the rising of Shamash, from Ar, which is over against the border of the torrent valley of Aranon, and as far as Mount Sheanon, which is Karamon, and all the arid desert region on this side of the Yarden eastward, and as far as the sea of the Arabaha, beneath the pouring out of Vasagaha. Now, I want to, again, I'll say this, I should probably say this every week, that for those of you who love watching me mispronounce or stumble over some of these words, some of you don't enjoy it too much. And I've gotten complaints that it's too hard to follow with some of these pronunciations. And now this week, I just have the paleo in front of you. There's been past weeks where I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to read the King James. And I started reading the King James. And I'm like, yeah, this is not much easier. Like, some of this is just hard. And I think sometimes, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So thank you everyone for sitting through this with me. And, you know, hopefully you're reading along. So if you're like, what is he saying? You could just look at the words right there and go, okay, yeah, I can't pronounce that either. So, and I probably couldn't if it was in Old English either, or any kind of English. The second speech of Mashahah. So there's, I think, a dozen different speeches, if I'm not mistaken, in Deuteronomy. So here we are, second speech. The commandment repeated. And Mashahah caught out toward Al Yasharel, and he declared toward them, hear, understand, and obey, O Yasharel, the statutes, the judgments, the directions, which I set in order in your ears this day, that you may be instructed by them, and so guard them to fashion them. Yahuwah or Allahaya cut a covenant, a Bera Yath, a covenant, with us in Harab. Not with our fathers only did Yahuwah, the ever-living, cut this covenant, but with us, we who are in this place this day, all of us, the living ones, face with faces, did Yahuwah set words in order with you upon the mountain from the midst of the fire. I took a stand enduring between Yahuwah and between you at that time, that I might conspicuously in the sight of all confess to you, Debar Yahuwah, for you had reverently feared from the face of the fire, and you ascended not unto the mountain. Now remember, they were all supposed to be kings and priests, and they were like, no, Moshe, you go do it. We're not going up there. We're too afraid. To say, I am Yahuwah, your Allahaya, which caused you to go forth from Arat Matrim, from the house of servitude. There shall not exist Allahayam Akarayam. Let me just see what this is here. And I study this, and then I'm like, Secondary Allahayam. And this would be like archons, I guess, right? Same thing. Allah, you could say archon gods. Allahayam Akarayam. Before my face, no fashioning for yourself a graven image or any form that is in Shamayam from the highest, or that is in the Arats from beneath, or that which is in the waters from the deep places of Arats. You shall not bow down, submitting yourself unto them, and do not serve them. For I, Yahweh, your Allahayah, am a jealous owl, striking upon the iniquities of the fathers upon the sons, and as far as the third and as far as the fourth generation of my haters. We all have haters, right? Well, Yahweh has a lot of haters. And that's pretty serious. That he will strike upon the iniquities of the fathers upon the sons, and as far as the third, as far as the fourth generation of the haters. So let's all think about this. And I'll be commenting on this a little bit later, but like your iniquities, guys, mine as well. All of our iniquities, like, man, he could strike this against our children, our children's children, and children's children. And now he says his haters, and this is part of the little season narrative, and are waking up right now in these foreign places. I'll talk about that. And fashioning Hasad unto the thousands of ones who love me, and of ones who keep watch from his commandments. You shall not lift up the name of Yahweh your Allahayah unto wickedness, vanity, falsehood, calamity. For Yahweh the ever-living will not purify or free from punishment whoever lifts up his name unto falsehood, vanity, wickedness, destruction. Guard the Sabbath day to set him apart, like that which Yahweh your Allahayah has commanded you. 6 days you shall serve work for another, and shall fashion all your prescribed work of service. But the seventh day is unto Yahweh your Allahayah. You shall not fashion any prescribed work of service. You or your son or your daughter or your servant or your amath, or your ox or your ass or your beast or your stranger which is within your gates. And for the purpose and intent that your servant and your amath may rest like you. And you have remembered that you existed as a servant in Mitzrayim, and that Yahweh your Allahayah cause you to go forth from there with a strong hand and with a stretched out arm. Upon this account, Yahweh your Allahayah commanded you to appoint the Sabbath day. You shall make heavy with honor your father and your mother, like that which Yahweh your Allahayah has commanded you, for the purpose and intent that your days may be made long, and for the purpose and intent that he does good unto you upon the land which Yahweh your Allahayah gives unto you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. Take by theft or deception secretly. You shall not sing in answer, lifting up the voice, implying answering a false testimony against your companion. And you shall not desire your companion's covenant woman. And you shall not desire your companion's house, your companion's field, or his servant, or his amath, or his ox, or his ass, or anything which is your companion. And this dabar rayam, the purpose, plans, the words set in order, which Yahweh the ever-living has set in order toward all your gathered assembly on the mountain from the midst of the fire, of the cloud mass, and Araphel, there he is again, with a great voice. And he did not increase. And he wrote upon them 2 tablets of stone, and he gave them toward me. And he existed when you heard, understood, and responded unto the voice from the midst of the Chesak. There it is again. 2 different forms of the darkness. And the mountain burned with fire, and you approached all the heads of your tribes and your bearded ones. And you declared, behold, Yahweh our Allahayah has shown us the heavy weight of his splendor and his greatness, and his voice we heard, understood, and obeyed from the midst of the fire. On this day, we have observed that Allahayam, he does set words in order toward Ha-Adam, and he exists. But now, for what purpose shall we die? For this great fire will devour us. For conditionally, if we hear the voice of Yahweh our Allahayah yet again, then we will die. For from what part of all flesh is he who has heard, understood, and answered the voice of the living Allahayam, from the words set forth from the midst of the fire like we have, and he lived. You draw near and hear all that he shall say, and you set the words in order toward us. all the words which Yahweh your Allah purposed toward you, and we will hear, will understand, and will answer him and fashion them. And Yahweh, the ever-living, heard, understood, and responded to the voice of your Dabarayam and your setting forth words in order toward me. And Yahweh has said toward me, I have heard, understood, and answered the voice of the words of this people, the matter which they have purposed toward you. They are well-pleasing, all the words which they have purposed. Oh, that they would give, and that this existed within their heart to reverently fear me, to guard all my commandments, for the purpose and intent that the days would be well-pleasing unto them and to their sons for a time of long duration, for as far as the eye can see or perceive to the edge of the horizon and beyond. So when we're talking about the Torah, and Pamela uses this line a lot, time is it's circular, right? And it just keeps going around and around with the feast, right? And so it's this idea of the this is going on and on. Like no matter how far you travel, you will never get to the point in the horizon where you can see the end of this. It is always beyond the horizon. There, no matter what generation, this is eternal. That's just another way of saying, maybe in like a Greek mindset, this is eternal. Walk, saying to them, turn back for yourselves into your tents, and you stand firm in this place near me, and I will set words in order toward you, all the commandments and the statutes which you shall teach them. And they shall fashion him in the land which I give to them as an inheritance. And you guard it to fashion like all that which Yahweh your Allah has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right side or to the left side in all the way which Yahweh your Allah leads you. So shall you walk. This is, of course, the way, right? Not to the left, not to the right. This is not a New Testament phrase, a coined term. When they were talking about the way, they were just referring back to this. For the purpose and intent that you may exist, and the excellence be with you, and you shall prolong your days in the land which you shall inherit. Obedience. And these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahweh your Allah has established to instruct you, for you to fashion in the land where you go to possess her. For the purpose and intent that you should reverently fear Yahweh your Allah, to guard all his statutes, which I have commanded, you and your son and your son's son, all the days of your existence, and for the purpose and intent that you shall prolong your days, and you have heard, understood, and obeyed, O Yasharel, and you have fashioned, that he may be well pleased with you, and that you may become exceedingly great, like the words which Yahweh the Allah of your fathers has purposed for you in the land flowing with fatness and honey. I like her phrasing there of fatness rather than milk. It's really interesting. Hear, understand, and obey, O Yasharel, Yahuwah, Allah Yanu, Yahuwah Akkad. This is the famous one, right? He is one. He is Akkad. This is the prayer that Yahushua HaMashiach prayed. He said that he is Akkad with the Father, and that he prayed that we would be Akkad with him, which is a beautiful prayer. Like to think that Yahuwah is Akkad with his Father, and that we would be Akkad too. That's just incredible. And you have loved Yahweh your Allah with all your heart, and with all your nefesh, and with all your strength. And these matters, these words set in order, which I have commanded you this day, shall be upon your heart. And you shall teach them with sharp sayings unto your sons, and you shall set these words before them when you sit down in your house, and when you walk along the way, and when you lay down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a strong established sign upon your hand, and for bands between your eyes. And you shall write, Kathub, them upon the mezuzah of your house and upon your gates. And he shall exist when Yahweh your Allah has brought you toward the land which he has solemnly sworn unto your fathers, unto Abraham, unto Yitzchak, and unto Yaakov, to give you great and excellent cities which you did not build, and houses, ones full of every excellent, beautiful, pleasant things, which you did not fill, and cisterns which you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. And you shall eat and be sated. Keep watch for yourself. Beware lest you forget Yahweh the ever-living, who caused you to go forth from Mitzrayim, out of the house of servitude. Now, I kind of see the problem that's happening here. Like, look what happens when you have very wealthy people, and you have these generations of people, and they work really, really hard for something. It's almost like maybe the baby boomer generation. The baby boomer generation is a generation that worked very, very hard for what they got. They got a little bit from their parents because their parents, the war generation, came out of the Depression. They came out of nothing, and they kind of tried to live the American dream, right? And the baby boomers, they are working hard through the 70s and the 80s. And there was kind of something that happened in the 1990s where there was a commentary I read once where in the 1990s was the first time where somebody might walk into a Starbucks, buy an expensive latte, drink a couple of sips from it, or maybe drink half of it and then toss the rest in the trash can. It was a time when there was kind of this abundant flow of money. There was these riches, and what comes out of that? Spiritual apathy, a numbing down, and actually a spoiled generation, right? And so he's basically saying here, look, you're going to come in and you're going to inherit these riches. I'm going to give you, like, you're going to just move into these houses that it sounds a very post mud flood, doesn't it? Like, you're just going to go in and just inherit these empty houses. I mean, you're just going to go in and you're going to get these farms, these vineyards. You didn't plan any of this. Beware, because this is going to create you. Like, you're going to forget me. You're going to forget me. And he says, this is why it's so important to write the commands on your doorpost, to speak it to your children, morning, lunch, dinner time, evening. Like, just, I hope you guys, we're all doing this. I speak for myself as well. I hope we're all doing this, that when you're sitting down with your family, just talk about the Bible, just take them through it, and just have this be a regular dialogue with them where they're just comfortable. Like, they know this, right? And I actually wish I would spent more time in my commentary with this tonight, because I think there's just way more to putting the commands on your doorpost than just for you not to forget about it. I actually think it's something very spiritual, that you're setting up the rules for the spirits to say, this is the covenant we are under. You know how people say, like, you cry out the name of Jesus, and the aliens leave or the spirits leave or whatever. Sometimes they'll say it doesn't always work. But man, I can give you guys a testimony that when I started keeping the Sabbath and eating clean and keeping the commands, this would be back in 2019, my entire life changed. I mean, there was something that changed, I think, with the spiritual world. And we started putting the commands out there and be like, okay, this is the rule. This is what we're keeping. This is the rules of the game. You guys have to honor this as well. This is the actual structure that the worldview we're living under. And I was telling this to my group recently, that I used to have nightmares just growing up, just silly stuff like tornadoes or whatever. But I had all these nightmares, and I would just have them all through my adult years. And over the last 5 years, I have to be careful saying this, because the spirits are always listening, right? Like, oh, really? Is that what you're saying? Oh, we're going to challenge this now. But I haven't had nightmares. It just my world has changed completely. And so this is why we're to do this and not forget. Yeah. All right. That was a rant. Let's keep going. Where was I? Let's just start up here. Right here. There we go. Keep watch for yourselves. Beware lest you forget Yahuwah the ever-living, who caused you to go forth from Mitzrayim, out of the house of servitude. You will reverently fear Yahuwah your Allahayah, and him you will serve, and in his name you will solemnly swear. And you shall not walk after Allahayam. There's the archons again. From among the Allahayah of the peoples in a circuit round about you. For Yahuwah your Allahayah in your midst is a jealous owl. Beware lest the anger of Yahuwah your Allahayah burn ardently against you and destroy you from the face of Ha-Adamaha. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your Allahayah, just as you tempted him in Masaha. You shall guard the commandments of Yahuwah your Allahayah, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. And you have fashioned the upright and good in the eyes of Yahuwah the ever-living, for the purpose and intent that he be well pleased with you. And you shall inherit the beautiful, excellent, pleasing land, which Yahuwah solemnly swore unto your fathers, to thrust out your enemies from before your face, like the words which Yahuwah the ever-living has set in order. I almost wonder if this is part of the test. Like, I mean, we're all, if we make it into the eternal kingdom, we're going to inherit it, right? Like we're going to go in and, Messiah said, I go to prepare a place for you. So he's preparing a place for us. So I'm assuming I'm not preparing that, right? So if I make it in, it's like, and this is where, you grow apathetic or, spiritually numb or whatever. And I am not of the position of I've come out of this Protestant world. The Protestant world teaches this idea that when you die, it's basically like a tree. It lands where it falls, right? Whatever your state was when you died, that's and then it's like you're going to go into this robot mode where you're just going to be fixed and you're just going to be a super awesome Christian from then on. Actually, I don't believe that. I think the redemption process is ongoing, and I believe that our quest, our obedience, and our pursuit of wisdom, we will still make choices in eternity. And so I think that and one of the Hebrew ideas, and we've done studies on this, is that even angels can slip up. They can make mistakes. They're not perfect. So it's just a test here on this earth. Like for this generation, it's like, look, you're coming into this land. If you can't dig it, like I'm going to give you all these treasures and you still slip this up. Like, why are you going to make it into eternity? If in future time your son asks you to say, what are the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments to which Yahuwah Eloheinu commanded you? Then you shall reply to your son, we existed as servants for Pharaoh and Mitzrayim, and Yahuwah the ever-living caused us to go forth from Mitzrayim with a strong hand. And Yahuwah gave powerful signs and great calamitous miracles upon Mitzrayim and upon all his houses to our eyes. My eyes are fading right now. Let's see. It's a long reading tonight. And as a powerful sign for us, he caused us to go forth from there for the purpose and intent that he might bring us to give us the land he solemnly swore unto our fathers. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, commanded us to fashion all these statutes to reverently fear Yahuwah, our Elohayah, for good unto ourselves all the days of our existence, like it is this day. And she will exist to us as righteousness if we guard to fashion all the commandments to the face of Yahuwah, our Elohayah. Like that which he has commanded us, for Yahuwah, your Elohayah, will bring you toward the land which you go there to possess her, and will drive out great nations from before your faces. The Kathoya, the Gashaya, the Emareya, and this will be the Canaanites, but the Kanu Anua, and the Phariziah, and the Chauya, and the Yabausaya, 7 nations greater and more numerous than you. And Yahuwah, it's interesting, 7 nations, the number 7. And Yahuwah, your Elohayah, shall give them up to your faces, and you shall strike them. Destroying, you shall utterly destroy them. You shall cut no covenant with them, and you shall not show them gracious acceptance, pity, or favor. And you shall not give your offspring in marriage with them. You shall not give your daughter to his son, and his daughter you shall not give unto your son. For he will turn aside your son from following after me, and he shall serve Allahayam, Akarayam, and the ardent anger of Yahuwah the ever-living shall burn against you and shall destroy you hastily. I kind of think there that what he's basically saying is Yahuwah is like, he could see all the different outcomes. And he's like, I'm telling you right now, like, do not give any of your children to them because they will just turn your heart. Now, we see this with Solomon, unfortunately. And of course, they don't follow through with this. And of course, later on in other parts of Deuteronomy, he's like, yeah, actually, this is going to happen. You're going to be thrown out. I'm telling you right now, you're going to be thrown out of the land. And the ardent anger of Yahuwah, the ever, you know what a good example of it is like, I think the average empire lasts about 250 years, which we are now expiring at. We're about a couple years away from that, or the whereabouts. And the founding fathers of this country, if we're going by official history, of course, they all talked about this. They all knew that kingdoms would rise and fall, and they were building this new kingdom. And so even they knew that there would come a time where tyranny would, like they were pulling away from British tyranny, and they knew there would come a time when tyranny would come up within this own country. It's kind of it's a bitter thought. It's a sad thought to know that's going to happen. And they know that's going to happen to their children as they come in. For conditionally you shall fashion in this manner with them. Their altars you shall utterly destroy, and their statues you shall break into pieces, and their Asherah poles you shall cut down, and their images you shall burn with fire. For you are set apart unto Yahuwah your Elohayah. Yahuwah your Elohayah has chosen on you to be unto himself a treasured people from all the peoples which are upon the face of the red ground. Not from being more numerous than any other people did Yahweh, the ever-living, join with you or choose you, for you are the fewest from all the people. Yahweh, the ever-living, loved you and guarded you because of the solemn oath which he swore unto your fathers. Yahweh has brought you out with a strong hand, and he did redeem you from the house of servitude, from the hand of Pharaoh, Malak of Mitzrayim. You will acquire knowledge, for Yahweh your Alahayah, he is Ha-Alahayam, the faithful Al, who guards the covenant, has gracious acceptance, pity, and favor for those who love and keep his commandments, until the circuit of 1,000 generations, and make him recompense unto his haters toward their faces, to cause them to be lost, wandering, wretched, ready to perish. He will not tarry toward his haters. He will recompense unto him toward his face. And you have guarded the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command you this day to fashion them. And that completes that reading. Wow, that was quite the reading. Thank you for hanging in there with me. All right. Why do we have a picture of Martin Luther? Well, one of the things I want to talk about tonight, and I actually talked about it, I think, last week, but I'm going to be continuing and building on the theme of last week, the reason for the little season. And, here's the big giveaway. It's to return to the Torah, to keep the Sabbath. And there are some amazing parallels I'm seeing in Deuteronomy, this whole section. But we see right here, just look at the highlighted sections here. I, Yahweh, your Alahayah, am a jealous Al, striking upon the iniquities of the fathers, upon the sons, and as far as the third and as far as the fourth generations of my haters. Now, keep in mind that it's not just necessarily a scenario. Now, a lot of people will discuss this, like the sins of the fathers, right? Last week, we talked about the 9th of Av and actually repenting of our sins, but asking for the repentance and having sorrow for the sins of our fathers. And I think that's a prayer that we're not really taught to have in a lot of our Protestant upbringings. There might be some former Catholics in this group, but maybe they are a little bit more used to that. I'm not really sure. It's a very Hebrew idea. But so it's not just the third and fourth generation. I mean, imagine if there's just obstinance after obstinance after obstinance, right? And eventually you got to break the cycle. And I think that's what's happening right now, where we're seeing the separation of the wheat and tares. And we're seeing so many people just waking up all over the world to these instructions in righteous living, this ancient path. It's such an exciting time to be alive. For those of you who are feeling really frustrated in this, like sometimes we just need to kind of get a better peripheral vision, pull those horse blinders off, and see that it's not about us, right? It's about Yah, and just all the amazing things he is doing in people all over the world. Even though it's very dispersed and people are feeling very lonely in this journey, again, it's not about us, right? It's about Yah, and that should give us a very different perspective. But anyways, whoever lifts up his name into falsehood, vanity, wickedness, destruction, guard the Sabbath day to set him apart like that which Yahweh your Alahayam has commanded you. I personally believe that a large focus of the end of the millennial kingdom and the beginning of the little season was about the Sabbath day. I haven't even done many studies on this. I've done studies on Constantine and that era and the mark of the beast, right? Being not keeping the Sabbath. There was that big kind of push up from 70 AD to the 500s. I haven't even touched yet on formal studies on what happened with the Protestant Reformation. My views on the Protestant Reformation is that it was all controlled and it was done by Rome. They needed to create an enemy, that kind of stuff. But let's look at some of what was happening. Interestingly enough, I'm learning that there were a lot of Sabbath keepers in the 1500s. And as I've stated, I always believe there were Torah keepers at all times in the little season. The problem is that the official narrative is not necessarily set up to tell us about them. We don't hear their side of the story. It's the same thing in 1969 with the Apollo 11 moon landing. And I have learned there were probably hundreds of thousands of people on this earth who looked at that TV and said, they're lying to us. Why did we never hear about those people? Because the media was not set up for that, right? But since coming to the flat earth, like, what was it, 10 years ago now, 2015 was the big awakening. So we're like 9 years out from that. But people started waking up in 2014, whatever. I've had so many people come forward and say, yeah, my parents or my grandparents, they all said this was, total BS. And we all thought they were weird for that, but there was a whole generation. Anyways, so in the midst of the attempt to reform the Roman Church, again, I think it was all just a setup. Luther was confronted regarding the Sabbath question. I think that they were just building a history this time. I really think that's what's happening. That the Roman Catholic Church, they needed to build a whole history. They create this opposition, this guy coming out to reform everything. Luther shows up, and Luther was so against the Sabbath. He wanted nothing to do with the Sabbath. And so there was this guy named Andreas Karlstadt, and he was a Sabbath keeper, and he would argue with Luther on this point. Here's one of his quotes: "God laid out before us all commandments and prohibitions to make us aware of our inner image and likeness, and to understand how God created us in his image to become as God is, i.e., holy, tranquil, good, just, wise, strong, truthful, kind, merciful, etc. All commandments of God demand of us to be godlike. In fact, they have been given us so that we might be conformed to God." And that's what he's saying here. He's saying, if you want to be conformed to the Most High, you got to keep the Sabbath. Like if you're not keeping the Sabbath, you are not conforming to him, right? Makes sense. Total sense. This is another quote of his, and this is called from his document that he was writing regarding the Sabbath and other statutory holy days. So, I mean, my understanding is it wasn't just the Sabbath, he was keeping the high Sabbaths as well. If servants have worked for 6 days, they are to have the 7th day off. God says without distinction, remember to celebrate the 7th day. He does not say that we must keep Sunday or Saturday as the 7th day. It is no secret that human beings instituted Sunday. Now, the next line, for those of you who are lunar Sabbath keepers, you're going to jump all over this one, right? And he says, as for Saturday, the matter is still being debated. Now, I do think that's a really interesting line. I would have to read more of his book. I'm under the impression that he's talking about Sabbath day being debated, but there could be something to it. There could be something else going on here. All right. Nevertheless, he's basically saying, look, it's very clear that Sunday is instituted by man. Well, this is Luther's response to Karlstadt. He says this, and he wrote it in 1525. Thus, it is not true that there is not ceremonial or judicial law in the 10 Commandments. Such laws are in the Decalogue, depend on it, and belong there. And to indicate this, God himself has expressly introduced 2 ceremonial laws, namely concerning images and the Sabbath. This is kind of like something like, John MacArthur or whatever is going to go down. And he's going to say that there's these 2. There's the Levitical purity laws or whatever. We don't have to keep those anymore. I feel even dirty even saying that. But yes, if Karlstadt were to write more about the Sabbath, even Sunday would have to give way. And that's the thing. He doesn't want to get rid of Sunday. And the Sabbath, that is Saturday, would be celebrated, which he doesn't want. He would truly make us Jews in all things, so that we would have to be circumcised. And it always comes down to that, huh? It always comes down to like men not wanting to take a little pinprick to that. This is one more quote from his, and again, this actual book is actually called Against the Heavenly Prophets. That's what it's called. Like, he's actually putting himself in an anti-position. I am anti-prophetical teaching on the Torah. Therefore, also, whoever destroys images or observes the Sabbath, that is, whoever teaches that it must be kept, he also must let himself be circumcised and keep the whole Mosaic law. How many times have you guys heard that before? All right. And then this is where it gets really good. This is a Johann Eck. Now, every Protestant knows about the 95 Thesis, right? He goes and nails the 95 Thesis to the door. Well, very few, if anyone, I would say very few, knows about the 404 Thesis that the Catholic Church decided to nail to his door. Now, I don't know if they really nailed it to his door, sent it in the mailbox. I'm not really sure how that worked out, but they sent it to Luther. And Johann Eck compiled the thesis to point out errors with Luther's theology and from the Roman perspective. I'm actually really interested to read this now. I'm not. I hope you guys know I'm not saying the Roman Catholic Church is the good guys by any means. But look at his confession here. This is where, like, at the end of the movie where everyone stands up and cheers and applauds. It's so good. It's the basically like the you can't handle the truth moment. There are some who think that the Sabbath ought still to be observed, since we have scriptures for this and not for the Lord's day. Scripture teaches, remember to hail the Sabbath day. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath day of the Lord your God, etc. Yet the church has changed the Sabbath into Sunday on its own authority, on which you have no scripture. It's like, what? Like, he's literally saying here, like, you're celebrating Sunday. You've got no reason to do that. You have nothing in all of Scripture that tells you to do away with the Sabbath and keep Sunday. It is by our authority. We've done that. So you're still under our authority. And I would say this as a challenge to anyone out there. I've spent my entire life hearing about how the whole ecumenical movement, how all these different religions, these denominations are coming together under Rome. Guys, that's all misdirection. If anyone out there, if you are not keeping the Sabbath and you are keeping Sunday, you are under the jurisdiction of Rome. You have never left Rome. You're still in. It's all an illusion. You're still in it. You're still under the beast system. All right, the whore Babylon, if you want to call it that. So anyways, I personally think it's interesting because you see this. Yah is telling you in Deuteronomy, he's like, you're going to be kicked out. You're going to go to all this. You're not keeping it's over the issue of the Sabbath. And I think that was the number one issue, the number one for the end of the millennial kingdom. It was not just a Sabbath, but as high Sabbaths as well. And people rebelled against them. There's just something very spiritual about this. For those of you who have had these conversations with your pastors, I hear it all the time. And you'll go in and ask them, like, well, what are we, what about this Sabbath? Why are we keeping Sunday? And the pastor will know that this is going to be a trap because they know the setup with Rome, right? They're like, well, you can keep Sabbath whenever you want, just any day. You just pick a day to rest, and then like Monday, oh yeah, Monday's good. Wednesday, oh yeah, Wednesday's fine. It's totally fine. How about Saturday? No, you can't keep that because that's Jewish. You're going to become a Judaizer. It's like they are so against the true Sabbath. And I will also say this to, I threw out that, the cookie out there to you. I threw you guys a bone for you Lunar Sabbaths out there. But I will say this to the Lunar Sabbath crowd, because I've had this conversation a lot. The Lunar Sabbath people will come to me and they'll say, oh, it's too easy to keep Saturday. It's too easy. That can't be true. I'm like, well, wait a second here. Yahushua says his burden is light. His yoke is easy, his burden is light. It's not supposed to be hard. You're making this too hard. But let me just say this. We Americans are literally given the Sabbath day. They're given Saturday off all over America, all over the West. They have Saturday off by tradition. I think it comes from the millennial kingdom. And they don't keep it. It's like Satan makes it so because he wants to accuse us. And he'd be like, yeah, I gave it to you. You had it. You could have kept it and you chose to rebel against it. Like you didn't have to go work that 9-to-5 job for most Americans. Incredible, right? It's like right in our face the whole time. All right. So going over a few verses that I went over last week and the end of the kingdom, we see here that Ruach Chakamaha, who I call, Sophia or wisdom. I've come to know the Holy Spirit as Ruach Chakamaha. And this is what it says in the Chokmah of Shalomah, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6. The beginning of wisdom, or Chokmah, or you could say Chakamaha. The beginning of wisdom is the most sincere desire for instruction, and concern for instruction is love of her. And love of her is the keeping of the Torah. And this is the Holy Spirit right here, right? If you love the Holy Spirit, you're going to keep the Torah. She is the Torah. And the Torah is your mother. And giving heed to her Torah, which is kind of interesting too. I say this a lot. It's interesting that the Ruach HaKodesh, that she was stripped of her femininity, her motherhood, just like the Torah was stripped away too. They're both connected, guys. They're both connected. And giving heed to her Torah is assurance of immortality. And immortality brings one near to Allah Hayam. So the desire for wisdom leads to a kingdom. So if you want to go into the kingdom, people are always, bemoaning, oh, we lost out on the millennial kingdom. We're in the little season. It's like, okay, but do you want to live in this is the pastor in me right now, the preacher right now. But it's like, okay, well, do you really want to live in the kingdom? Like, what are you bemoaning here? Because if you want to live in the kingdom, you have to live by the laws of the kingdom. And it's right here. Like, wisdom hasn't gone anywhere. She's still here. You can seek her out. Live according to the Torah and, experience her fruits. All right. The destiny of the righteous. It says right here, I'm going to just read the highlighted for lack of time. In the time of their visitation, they will shine forth and will run like sparks through the stubble. This is the resurrected sainthood. They're coming and they're like the calf that is released from the stalls, dancing on the ashes of Gehenna after all the wicked have been destroyed. They will govern nations and rule over peoples, and Yahweh will reign over them. But then we read this, and this was just a big aha moment for me last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember now. And this is talking about the wilderness generation and why they had to wander through the wilderness, because they were disobedient against the Torah, against their mother as well, and their father. But they were troubled for a small season. There it is right there. They were troubled for a little season. Why? That they might be admonished, having a sign from Yeshua to put them in remembrance of the commandment of your Torah. So this right here, when it's talking about a sign of salvation of Yeshua, which is actually the name of course, Yahusha, is talking about well, I should have read verse 5. It says, let me just read verse 5 real quick. For when the terrible rage of wild animals came upon your people and they were being destroyed by the bites of writhing serpents, your wrath did not continue to the end. This is talking about when the fiery serpents came, whether they were basilisk or they were seraphim angels, whatever, and they were coming and just biting everyone and killing them. And what did Moshe have to do? He had to put the basilisk or the fiery serpent up on the bronze pole. Everyone had to look at it as the sign of their Yeshua, right? So this is where Christianity gets it wrong. They're like, oh no, you just have to look at him up there on the cross and believe in his resurrection and you're good to go. It's like, no, the purpose for doing that, the medicine is always the Torah. It's always the Torah. And so it's to put in remembrance of the commandment of your Torah that we have forgotten. That's it. That's the whole thing right there. That's how to get out of this little season. If you want to know why we're in this and you want to know how to get out, there it is right there. And Yah will have mercy on you. He will forgive you. He will have mercy on you as you go through this process of learning how to live it out. All right, so let's talk now about Arafel and the cloud of unknowing. I about fell out of my seat when I read this. And so if you recall, we read tonight, and you drew near and you took a stand below the mountain. This is talking about, now they're like, these are the 20-year-olds. They might be 40 by this point, because as you recall, Yah said he's going to kill off everyone older than 20, and only those 20 and younger can go into the land. So they could be in their late 30s now, nearing 40 or whatever. And he says, and the mountain burned with fire as far as the heart of heaven, of Shamayam, along with Chesak, the cloud mass, and Arafel. Now, what really knocked my socks off is when we then read after that, where he's telling them, like, don't look up the stars and worship them. Don't worship the planets. Don't worship the sun. Don't make any images. Don't worship those. You're going to worship me through this darkness. All right. So Arafel is, I was asking Pamela about this. Her, I think, main thought is that it's a winged watcher that drops down darkness. So this is an actual entity, as is the Chesak. There seem to be two different entities, and there's also another a spiritual entity, Layla, and she's called the Night Terror. This is where we get Lilith from. And of course, they're all three these different spirits of darkness, or somehow a conscious entity that is related to the darkness itself. Now, all right, so here's my note right here. The mysterious author of the Cloud of Unknowing encourages us not to be deterred by Chesak and Arafel, but to press on through the darkness to where Allah Hayam. So I covered this before, if you remember, with Mary Magdalene and the fact she went into a cave. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this tonight. And right up here, this object right here is what is called like a mandala, and I'll explain this really quickly. It's actually in relation to the rose windows that we see in front of all the cathedrals everywhere in the world. That you go through that door right there. There's usually 3 doors. There'll be a big one, and then 2 little ones. You go through that door, and right over it is a rose window, and this is basically like your the third eye, right? Well, mandala is a concept which you should be familiar with by this point. Uh, and they can be found everywhere in MK architecture. And as I just mentioned, we know them as rose windows. They can typically be found over the cathedral entryway, encouraging the extrasensory perception of each pilgrim passing in, welcoming them, playing the part of the third eye. But there's more to this. The very word mandala is of Sanskrit origin and translates to mean circle or center. So they're circles. As advocates of the metaphysical significance of geometric patterns and numbers, the Pythagoreans saw the circle as particularly sacred. And in this way, you can think of a mandala as a geometric configuration of symbols which establishes sacred spaces, allowing its practitioners to and adepts to achieve their spiritual goals. So you're going into this sacred space, an empty space, and in this space, you're basically going into like a from the macroverse to the microverse, or maybe vice versa. You're expanding out. You're going like maybe like I don't know, like a telescope type of thing. The circle is a representation of unmanifest unity, where all cosmic opposites reside. It encourages one's spiritual journey from the outside of oneself inward, from the macro to the micro universe, as I just mentioned. And this is what Mary McMignal teaches us. Now, I'm going to give you this example here from Joseph Campbell and Star Wars. And everyone knows this scene where Luke Skywalker is in Empire Strikes Back, the second one, though the kids nowadays know as Episode 5. We just knew it as the sequel to Star Wars back in the day. He's being trained on Dagobah by Yoda. And well, let me just say, here's a quote real quick from Joseph Campbell. And he says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." All right. So think of this as the darkness, right? Remember, everyone is afraid to go up to that mountain. They're telling Moses that we're not doing this. We're not entering that darkness. You have to go into there's this darkness literally there that you enter to perceive Yahuwah. So this is the line from Yoda. He says, "In you must go." He's talking about this cave. And Luke says, "What's in there?" And he says, "Only what you take with you." That is so profound. And then he says, "Your weapons, you will not need them." Well, if you remember the scene, Luke looks at him and kind of like, he kind of rolls his eyes, and he puts on his belts and with his gun and his lightsaber, and he goes in there. Well, what happens when he goes into the cave? He meets a vision of Darth Vader. They get into a fight, and he cuts his head off. His head rolls off, and then it kind of explodes, and Luke sees his own face in the helmet. So the question is what would have happened if he listened to his teacher and he didn't take any weapons with him? What would have happened differently? Well, we get kind of a sense of what might have happened in the next film, because we then see what's kind of interesting is that when Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, nobody can beat each other, because they're actually equals. Like, this is total dualism, checkerboard dualism. The light and the darkness are equal players. It's not until Luke actually leaves the side of the light and he turns over to the dark side that he becomes more powerful than his father, and he strikes him down. Well, remember that great scene. He sees him struck down, and he looks at his light. He looks at his hand that was cut off, and he just throws his lightsaber down. He remembers the cave. Like, only what you bring with you. And in this way, of course, his father turns. Now, so imagine the scenario if he had actually learned that lesson earlier, and he went and confronted his father, and he brought no weapons with him. And I almost wonder, like, when he went in the cave, it wouldn't have been a fight. Maybe it would have been a vision where his father approaches him and pulls off his mask and sees his face or something. You see what I'm saying? We'll never know. We'll never know what happened. But that's the idea of a mandala right there. So if you go to France, and this is on my bucket list, I want to go to this cave, St. Baume Cave in France. This is where Mary Magdalene lived her life. And you can see all these illustrations here. The cave is a mandala. It is the rose window. And she actually teaches the pilgrim, the spiritual practitioner, how to enter this darkness and leave all idolatry behind. You all of your understanding of what Yah looks like, and you just enter this, and you go on these these ecstasies. So I will point this out. I bring this guy up a lot. Dionysius, pseudo Dionysius. He was a 6th century guy. He identified as the very guy from Acts chapter 17. And everyone's like, that can't be so. I think there's really something to him. And he's a fascinating individual that he inspired the cathedrals. He inspired what I would call millennial kingdom theology in a lot of ways. Fascinating guy. This is what we read in the Cloud of Unknowing, also by a mysterious author. We don't know this guy's name. They tell us that a lot about the Middle Ages, right? Like there's some residue that comes through, and they just scrub this stuff. And he says, and therefore shape you to abide in this darkness as long as you may, evermore crying after him that you love. For if ever you shall feel him or see him, and he's talking about Yahweh, as it may be here, it behooves always to be in this cloud, in this darkness. He's talking about the cloud at Mount Sinai. And if you will busily travail as I bid you, I trust in his mercy that you shall come there too. The next chapter, he says this, for when I say darkness, I mean a lack of knowing. As all the thing that you know not, or else that you have forgotten, it is dark to you, for you see it not with your spiritly eye. And for this reason, it is not called a cloud of the air, but a cloud of unknowing that is between you and your God. So what he's saying here is that you need to remove yourself so far from idolatry. When Yah is saying in Deuteronomy, this is why I almost fell on my chair, because when Yah is saying in Deuteronomy, like, I don't want you to bow down to any image. I don't want you to make any image and say that's me. Like, I want that. Don't look up to the stars. Don't look up to the sun. None of that. None of that is me. And this is what this writer is saying, is like, you need to erase all of that from your thinking. And you need, like, every perception you have of him, and you need to enter this cloud. Let's see what he says in 43. And therefore break down all knowledge and feelings of all manner of creatures, but most busily of thyself. For on the knowledge and the feeling of thyself hangs knowledge and feeling of all other creatures. For in regard of it, all other creatures be lightly forgotten. For should you busily set you to the proof, you shall find when you have forgotten all other creatures and all their works, yea, and thereto all your own works, that there shall live yet after between you and your God a naked knowledge and a feeling of your own being. The which knowledge and feeling behooves always be destroyed, ere the time be that you feel soothfast the perfection of this work. He's going to be tying this into Mary Magdalene and Martha. He's going to be separating the two, saying, look, Martha's great. She did work. But Mary Magdalene was at his feet, and she couldn't even be bothered. Like, everything had vanished, and she was at the feet of her master, and like, it was just like this. She was in that cloud of unknowing. Even when Martha was coming and complaining, she didn't even hear her. She wasn't there. She was just so like focused. Like, for the guy who wrote the Cloud of Unknowing, Mary Magdalene was the ultimate kind of spiritual guru, if I can use that word, the ultimate teacher of the prayer life. He said that she, and again, they built the cathedrals. Like, the Cloud of Unknowing matches the cathedrals. I've taken it through this whole thing. Like, Mary Magdalene was, they built the cathedrals around her. She basically, there are manifestations of what she has shown. The Cloud of Unknowing 62. All manner of bodily thing is without your soul and beneath it in nature. Tell me that this doesn't sound like Deuteronomy. Yea, the sun and the moon and all the stars, although they be above your body, nevertheless, yet they be beneath your soul. And this is why Yahweh is like, don't look up at them and worship them. And if we really understand it right, and I think this goes into pre-existence. I'll be talking about this tonight, Doppelgangers and Returning of the Stars. That, again, the firmament and all the stars, this is going to be beneath us, right? So if we're, looking up and worshiping, we got it all wrong, right? All angels and all souls, although they be confirmed and adorned with grace and with virtues, for the which they be above you in cleanness. That's a fascinating quote right there. Nevertheless, yet they be but even with you in nature. And to have a guy talking about how how the spiritual realm, the angels are clean, and there's these clean laws, and mankind is dirty down here. Like, that is fascinating. Within thyself and nature be the powers of your soul, the which be these three principal: memory, reason, and will, and secondary imagination, sensuality. Above thyself and nature in no manner of thing, but only God. So everything, he's telling you, like, yeah, uh, you have to, like, surrender yourself over to Yahuwah so fully that even your reason, and just your will, yourself, everything, like, it has to be completely thrown on the altar. Total sacrifice, picking up your cross and literally dying. That's what he's calling us to. And of course, he says in this book that very few people will get there. But all right. So and then of course you see this time and time again in the artwork where Mary Magdalene is in this cloud of unknowing, that she is just so, like, in her prayer life, she's like just spaced out. You see these all the time. She's praying in all of these. She's not even there. I mean, she's just gone in her prayer life. Now this is where he talks about, okay, let's see what it says here. But to the sovereign wisdom of his Godhead, lapped in the dark words of his manhood, thither behold she with all her love of her heart, for from thence she would not remove, for nothing that she saw, nor heard, spoken, nor done about her, this is Mary Magdalene, but sat full still in her body, with many a sweet privy and a lusty love pressed upon the high cloud of unknowing between her and her God. He's describing the scene when Martha is complaining, and he's saying that she's in the cloud of unknowing. And interesting enough, at the resurrection, when she was the first to see him resurrected, or actually in this scene here, she hasn't even seen him resurrected yet, right? She goes to the tomb, and this is what he says: sweet was that love between our Lord and Maria. Much love had she to him, much more had he to her. For whoso would utterly behold all the behavior that was between him and her, not as a trifler may tell, but as the story of the gospel will witness, the which on no wise may be false, he should find that she was so heartily set forward to love him, that nothing beneath him might comfort her, nor yet hold her heart from him. That is she, that same Maria, that when she sought him at the sepulchre, with weeping cheer would not be comforted of angels. That's a fascinating the way he's describing her spiritual life. All right, so here we have in Psalm 91, I'm reading from Hamlet's translation of the Paleo. I can't remember if this is from her collection of Psalm 1 or Psalm 2. She's getting ready to publish the third collection in the Psalms right now. But here we see, we're going to see Erethel, Layla, Mountain of Elion, and the Hidden Wilderness, and how this all ties in with Sinai. It's a thought that Moshe penned this, by the way, on the very day that he finished the tabernacle. And this is what we read. Oh, and let me just say this. The best way to characterize Erethel is by describing the darkness. The only hurdle is in understanding that there are two words in Hebrew which signify darkness: Erethel and Chosek. Chosek is the more conventional and straightforward appropriation of the absence of light, and they both come into Deuteronomy, as we saw. Whereas Erethel is an altogether different type of darkness. It is a thick and deep gloom, a heavy cloud, apocalyptic in nature, and always identified with the presence of Allah Hayam. One such occurrence happens in Exodus 22. We saw another occurrence in Deuteronomy, when the children of Yashua stand back and watch Moshe ascend Sinai into the Erethel, the very presence of Allah Hayam. There's that cloud of unknowing right there. Amazing. He will sit down in quiet and abide in the hidden place, the coverts of the mountain of Elion. Turn aside, weary traveler, rest, find lodging in the shadow and protection of Shaddai, the most powerful El. I will boast of Yahweh, the one to whom I flee. He exists, my mountain castle, my Elahai. In his dwelling will I be surrendered, will I be securely fenced in. Yes, he will snatch me away like plunder, from ruin and destruction. He will deliver me from those who plot and plan, and from the net which they spread out to entrap me. By the most powerful El, I escape from plague and death, and from the deep chasm. Beneath the covering of his wings, the interwoven pinion feathers, he will shut you in. Here you will go inside, you will take refuge. As a barbed shield, as a buckler crafted of scaly dragon hide, that guards with prickliness, and with piercing cold, his truth shall protect you. You will not tremble in fear. You will not reverence the night terror. Layla, there she is. Just like the Eric Clapton song, I guess. Who twist away from the light. And during the days, in the time periods between the rising of the sun and to the going down thereof, the arrow that flies shall not pierce you. In Araphil, cherub of darkness. So right there you can see that Araphil is we mentioned earlier as a watcher, but there she describes him as an actual cherub. Pestilence walks about. He lays waste with destructive acts of violence. The teeth of the destroyer appears at midday. He shall fall, the adversary, his troops. 1,100 in company are cast down at your side. Thousands upon thousands die violently to your right. Yet Nephal shall not approach near you. Rockby enek tabit. Only with your eyes shall you consider, shall you perceive the retribution against those who left the correct path, the morally wrong, the guilty and condemned, because you have set in place Yahweh as your refuge, Yahweh, who is my support, because you have determined Elyon as your dwelling place. Therefore, you will not encounter misery. Calamity shall not happen to you. You will not be broken by distress. No spotted plague shall draw near in the tabernacle of your home, for he will give command in his malakah, his messengers, to guard you in all your journey. In the palm of your hands they shall lift you up and carry you away to prevent your feet from being smitten by the builders. Upon the lion and the venomous serpent you shall walk. You will stamp upon the young lion and the sea monster. Because he is attached to me, because he clings to me in love, I will cause him to slip away to escape. I will lift him up and set him in a high, inaccessible place, because he intimately knows my name and my character. He will cry out. I will answer tunefully. I, Anoki, Yahweh, will be with him in his tribulation. I will gird him for battle. I will burden him with riches and honor. With length of days and abundance will he be satisfied, and he will see with his eyes my Yeshua. That's an epic journey right there to I think the mountain of Elyon. This was a whole, I did a whole thing on this in the Hidden Wilderness and showing all these different, this mountain of Elyon that was somewhere a long journey. And so talking about this Hidden Wilderness and the little season, the millennial kingdom, this comes from Enoch. And it says that, and when the day and the power and the punishment and the judgment come, which Yahweh of spirits or Ruachoth hath prepared for those who worship not the righteous Torah. It says that there in Enoch. And for every single Hebrew thinker, you do away with the Torah, that is apostasy. That is just the definition of apostasy. And so and he talks about the waste wilderness and Duodin and Behemoth and all this. And on the east of the garden where the elect and righteous dwell, I find that really fascinating. So if Eden is all the way in the east, wherever that is, and I actually kind of think it was the lost continent of Mu, very likely. Though I'm totally cool with the idea that it is in Babylon, in the whole Sumerian region there. That is the traditional view. It just seems like we have all this literature where it's saying like, no. Eden is in the east, but it's so far east. There's nothing further than this east. There's only one thing further than where Eden is, where paradise is. And that's where the elect and righteous dwell on this earth. There's a place on this earth where there is a physical land that is only for the spiritual realm. And it says this, thou son of man, herein thou dost seek to know what is hidden. This is one of the reasons I call it the hidden wilderness. And in fact, it says this in 2 Ezra 7, for behold, the time will come and the signs which I have foretold to you will come to pass, that the city which now is not seen shall appear. This is renewed Jerusalem, and the land which is now hidden shall be disclosed. I don't believe this is talking about the North Pole. This is talking about a large swath of land which is now hidden from us, and this is why we have globe Earth to create this entire illusion that the earth is much smaller than it really is. There's scenes like in 2 Samuel where we see David leaving mournfully because of Absalom, and he leaves Jerusalem. He goes across the brook Kidron, and it says, and all the people pass over toward the way of the wilderness. And we see that word in there for like divine, kind of interesting. We see Yahusha saying the same thing in the Odes of Solomon, that he will leave, He says, I extended my hands and approached my Adonai, for the expansion of my hands is his sign. And my extension is the upright cross. I always say that the Tav is his calling card that was lifted up on the way of the righteous one. And I became useless to those who knew me not, because I shall hide myself from those who possessed me not. And I will be with those who love me. And my persecutors who have died, and they sought me, they who declared against me, because I am living. Then I arose and am with them and will speak by their mouths. This is amazing. I love Odes of Solomon, because it's literally saying, the writer here, this is Messiah. He's saying, I died, I'm alive now. And my persecutors, they sought me, they're dead now. But this whole book, it's just, it's like written very simply to, I believe, mortals from these freaking brilliant, immortals. And they're just saying, like, look, like, we get it. We're sinless, right? And we're ruling over you. But we're just accept his grace and mercy. Just accept his grace and mercy. And they weren't doing it. And he's basically saying, all right, I'm getting up and I'm leaving. I'm going to be with those who love me. You're not going to see me anymore. In Odes 42. Psalms 27. For in the day of evil, he shall hide me in his sukkah. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. Hosea 2:14 says this, therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably into her. And I will give her, there's that divine sign again, her vineyards from thence and the valleys of Echor for a door of hope. And she shall sing there and in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up out of the land of Mitzrayim. I'll be talking more, hopefully, if I get to it tonight. I'm running out of time, about the story. You guys all know how Abraham was really searching for a different city. He was looking for the eternal city when he went to the land. And I think this is what it's talking about here too, that Israel would be brought into the hidden wilderness. The righteous hide themselves in Proverbs 28. When the righteous triumph, there's great glory, but when the wicked rise, people hide themselves. And so a lot of this wickedness, I believe, that brought into this little seasons is this doing away with the Sabbath. I think they did it with the Torah. The big thing for them was wanting to eat unclean animals and this doing away with the Sabbath. Those are the two big ones. And of course, then they don't want to be circumcised anymore either. And that just takes one generation to do that. All right, what's next on the list? I went over this last week. I don't have time to go over this again. The River Jordan. I just scanned through this really quickly here. We went through this as well. Oh, look, I'm skipping a bunch of pages. Look at this, making up time. This is amazing. All right. What I want to talk about tonight to close out tonight is doppelgangers, stars, and how the stars are a reflection of the righteous. And we read that last week when Yah is saying, and Moshe is speaking in his speech, saying that you guys have now fulfilled the promise of Abraham that his descendants would be like the stars of the firmament. And now you guys actually match the number of the stars, which is really, really interesting, because now all the wicked have died off. And it seems that those who are going into the land actually match the stars, the righteous on the earth. And the question that has been asked many times are the stars a reflection of the righteous? Well, there's different ideas on it. Here's a passage here that, famous one, John chapter 3, Nicodemus is talking. He's like, how can anyone be born after having grown old? And Yahusha's response is, I tell you, no one can enter the kingdom of Elohim without being born of water and spirit. If you listen to the talk that Michael gave last night with Mel Loves Yah and Jason and myself, he brought that one up as well, that this is talking about the resurrection. I grew up in Baptist denominations. They love to talk about, they love to ask you, when was your born again moment, right? And I've talked to them since. I'm like, well, I'm not born again yet. And they got me. They look at me, they look at each other like, oh, we got one. And then I start telling them about, and they're just, they want to close the conversation real quick. So you can see here that the beauty of birth, and, a baby does not take their first breath till they come out of the womb. They're really in water. Of course, there's water births, and it was amazing. It was a beautiful moment watching my daughter getting born in water. And they come out, and their first breath is probably saying the name of the Creator, Yahweh, or Yahweh. You're right, that's their first breath. But the thing is that we can see here, like with the firmament as well, is that there is water above us, right? You see this with the Egyptians over here with Nuit or Nut. You see this over here with the Hebrew cosmology. And so this idea of water is that we're in this womb of this earth and there's water over us. We come in through water, and in our spiritual birth, our born again moment, I believe, is when we're resurrected and we're going above the firmament in spirit, and we're passing through the water. It's like that's the second birth. That's the born again moment, as far as I'm concerned. I do believe we are given the Ruach HaKodesh as a deposit, and we could forsake that. We could turn away, but we are given the deposits of the Ruach HaKodesh. Now, for lack of time, unfortunately, I'm going to skip a lot of this material. If you've been watching my videos recently, I went over this. I've gone over it a few times. I don't need to repeat all this. All right. Angels are stars. And, you guys know this. You guys know that angels are stars. We see this all through the Bible. I'll just read a couple of these. Here's a great one from Judges 5:20. I'm going to give you guys a story. From the heavens they fought, the stars from their courses fought against Sisera. And I actually talk about this in my Gospel of Peter commentary. I have a whole chapter on this. And how many ancient cultures talked about how the stars would fight over humanity. And I have actually seen this in real time happen. I'm sure all of you have your crazy stories about looking up to the heavens. And it wasn't until we learned that the earth was motionless and flat under a solid firmament that I think a lot of us started looking up and seeing things. And I remember back in 2016 when I was just fascinated with the constellations and looking up there going, wow, like we really live on a motionless earth, just like the Bible says. And I remember one night I'm going on a prayer walk late at night, and I look up and I could see the stars in the sky. They would start doing this. They would start spinning around like just around a circle, and then they would all stop. And then I would see them dart around, and they would stop, and then they would start spinning again. And I'm watching this going like, is anybody else see? This is amazing. And I actually think they looked like they were in like I don't know if it was like a dance or what, but it looked like they were in combat. I mean, I'm seeing them like go at each other and stuff. And I kind of think it was something similar to Judges. I don't know what was going on the earth at that time. I don't know what was happening in the news or what was not being reported in the news, but it seemed like there was like some sort of fight going on over the earth. And of course, this is why the increase of earthquakes too, right? Because there's always a connection between people coming out of Sheol or vice versa, or coming down from the earth or going up to heaven. There's earthquake activity, and it seems like there's a lot of battling right now over the souls of mankind. Anyways, you can see that I came equipped with a lot of verses about, stars being divine beings. And I think that my audience knows that it would be pretty elementary. So there might be a few of you out there. I'm sorry. But let's just go on to doppelgangers. And when I started doing this research a little over a year ago, I was really excited about it. I didn't get a lot of response from people, so I kind of dropped it. People are like, we'll just put up with this because Noel's talking about it. We'll just hurry it up and he'll get on to something else. So here's that passage in Genesis, and then what we read last week in Doppelgangers, and the promise in Genesis that I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and will give you your descendants all these lands, and by your descendants all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. So let's read what we read last week in Deuteronomy 1:9. Observe, I have given to your faces the land to enter and to take possession of the land which Yahweh the ever-living swore unto your fathers, unto Abraham, and unto Yitzchak, and to Jacob to give them, and to their seed after them. And I did speak toward you at that time to declare, I am not able to carry you myself alone. Yahuwah Elohim has greatly increased you, and behold, you are this day as the stars of Ha-Shamayam for greatness. And so I think that's the fulfilled prophecy, or the promise, if you will, that he gave to Abraham. So now they're getting ready to enter the land, and the stars in the sky equal the number of Yasharel, which just very profound. Here's another one in Deuteronomy 10. So we haven't gotten there yet. I think maybe next week, maybe we'll cover this. But it says, your fathers went down to, and now I'm not reading from the Paleo here. I think this is the King James. We'll read this from Paleo next week. Your fathers went down to Egypt with 70 beings. And now Yahweh, your Allahayam, has made you as numerous as the stars of the heavens. So there it is again. And so it's, again, this is very profound because they go into Egypt as the 70, and we know that there are 70 Elohim or gods or Allahim over humanity, or there were. I think they've been judged now. I think they're removed from their positions. And so it's interesting to see the sons of Yaakov go into Egypt as a representative of those 70, and now they're coming out into the land as the total number of divine beings. Isn't that interesting? And remember now, we already read the passage tonight that the idea of going into the kingdom is that they would be like these blazing stars that are running about the earth, the resurrected, that they would be actually judging the nations as the 70 were originally supposed to do. Here's a famous passage in Daniel 12:3. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. And apparently now, I say this all the time, but apparently now we're not supposed to turn people to righteousness because the standard of righteousness has been done away with. And apparently only Satan wants you to turn people to righteousness now. So apparently this is no longer accurate. It's just insanity to think about that. But anyways, for those of you out there who are attempting that you yourselves are wanting to live according to the standard of Yah, and the doubters out there, the deniers who say that's impossible, actually it's not. It's actually just repentance. You just repent of your sins. You repent. You say, I have transgressed your commands. These are the ones I've commanded, right? You've commanded right here. I've transgressed. I repent of that. And if you yourselves, if you want to shine like the stars of the firmament, you want to be one of those stars, those divine beings, turn other people to righteousness. That should be the standard of your life. Your goal in this life should be to turn just like Noah spent his whole life, try to turn as many people as you can to righteousness, and you too. That's the promise, that you will shine like the stars forever and ever. Isn't that exciting? So we're going to start talking about doppelgangers now, and I'm going to turn to Plato and Timaeus. Yes, I'm doing it. I'm turning to Plato. Some of you will be like, but just hear this. This is really interesting stuff. Now, when all the stars which were necessary to the creation of time had attained a motion suitable to them, and had become living creatures having bodies fastened by vital chains. Now, he's talking here about the cosmology and how the stars spin around in the firmament. And he doesn't have the Hebrew perspective about the times, right? Though I think that Plato obviously was very much into the zodiac. It is interesting here that he's saying that they were created to attain, this kind of clockwork up there. That's what he's basically saying. And he says, moving in the motion of the diverse, which is diagonal and passes through and is governed by the motion the same. They revolve, some in larger and some in a lesser orbit. Those who had the lesser orbit revolving faster, and those who had the larger more slowly. So, and he actually talks about here. So here's what he's saying. He's saying, like, if you're a star that's near Polaris, you turn around slower. But if you're like way down here on the horizon, you're spinning around, because this is what the ancients believed. And I think it's absolutely 100% correct. You're spinning faster to keep up with the star up here that's going slower, right? And they actually talk about the stars in the south that actually go in the opposite direction too, which is really interesting. Let's go on to the next quote here. After, for this reason, the fixed stars were created to be divine and eternal animals. That's another way of saying divine beings, that the stars are divine beings, ever abiding and revolving after the same manner and on the same spot. So they're in a fixed path. They're on the way. They don't divert to the left or right, right? This is even what the Hebrews would talk about. You don't want to be a wandering star. To be a wandering star is to be a planet is to be without the Torah. You don't want to be a wandering star. And the other stars which reverse their motion and are subject to deviations of this kind were created in the manner already described. The earth, which is our nurse, clinging around the pole, which is extended through the universe. And that's really interesting. This idea of they're talking about the cosmic tree here, the North Pole that literally it goes up to the heavens. The earth, which is our nurse, around the pole which is extended through the universe. He framed to be a guardian and artificer of night and day, first and eldest of gods that are in the interior of heaven. All right. Now, what I want you to see right here is this highlighted section. And I'm just showing you that he builds up this case. Plato will go on and on and on for chapters just building up his case. I probably do the same thing, but he who lived well during his appointed time was to return and dwell in his native star. And there he would have a blessed and congenial existence. So he's just described these stars as these divine beings that are not us, but also that those who are righteous. Now, again, I know that the Greeks will have a different interpretation of righteousness than we will, and I will hold to the Hebrew standard, but I do believe that the mysteries were distributed, and this seems to line up with things I've already read, that everybody on this earth, the righteous, appear to have some sort of connection to a star. And stars come and go. They fizz out and they appear. We have records of stars just cropping up through history. We're not talking about the zodiac here. We're just random stars. I think they come and go, and they might be mirrors of humanity. And so, isn't that interesting? You know how maybe back in the 90s it was popular. You would buy a star, which is a weird concept, and you would name it after your lover or whatever. Isn't that interesting if we find out that we actually have a star that is actually our star, and maybe it's in our zodiac, maybe, whatever you are, Pisces or Aries or, whatever, Capricorn, I don't really know. And of course, we read this in Hebrews 1:14. Are not all angels ministering Ruach spirits sent to earth to those who will inherit Yeshua, salvation? And so we know that it's according to this, the mission of the angels they're coming down to minister to those who are going to inherit salvation. And I actually think that's probably going to be our future role as well. I've also theorized that many of these angels, remember, an angel can be just a messenger. There are many different classes of angels, cherubim, seraphim, so on and so forth. But I think a lot of these could be the Melchizedek priesthood. The people who went with Enoch or throughout history. And they're actually, I think it's still true that millennial kingdom saints are still doing missions, and they're on this earth, and we've probably seen them. We've definitely seen the Nordics, the evil of the Nordics out there. We see the reptilians and stuff. I think they're all out there. I think we rub shoulders with them. It's kind of exciting to think about. But here's a really interesting example that happens in the book of Acts. And this is Peter being rescued by an angel in prison. And I show you the artwork. None of the angels ever look like Peter. However, we read this here. He goes and he's knocking on the door. Was it Miriam? The door of Miriam of John Mark's house, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me, but nobody's answering the door. Finally, somebody comes out. And they go back to the party and hear the ecclesia, and they say the Kepha is outside. And they said unto her, "You are mad." But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. And then they said, "It is his angel, his angelos." Now, people will argue that angelos just means messenger, right? Like I just said. But it's like, okay, so what? So the two angels, the two angelosos by the tomb of Mashiach, they were just random dudes? Like, no, these were clearly angels from heaven. And they're not saying here that this is his messenger. And they're actually saying, like, the connection here is that she's going in and telling them that she saw Peter. And they're like, no, it's just his angel. Well, what does that mean? Are they actually identifying his angel with a doppelganger, saying that it looks exactly like him? Okay, now this here. Okay, I've already done this with Wisdom of Solomon tonight, so I'm not going to repeat that for lack of time. There's another really interesting incident that happens in Acts of Kepha, chapter 22. And let's see, what is the context on this? Oh yeah, Marcellus. He's like some sort of senator for Rome, and he's converted. He's some high-ranking dude in the Roman Senate or government or whatever. He's an aristocrat, and he had this dream, and so he's going to go tell Kepha this dream. So let's see what this says. And Marcellus turned to sleep for a short space and awoke and said unto Kepha, "O Kepha, thou apostle of Mashiach, let us go boldly unto that which lieth before us. For just now, when I turned myself to sleep for a little, I beheld thee sitting in a high place, and before thee a great multitude, and a woman exceeding foul. So this woman is like this kind of spiritual whore, adulteress type. In sight like an Ethiopian, not an Egyptian, but altogether black and filthy. Now, as racist as this may sound, I do point out that this is kind of when I look into like the arguments of the Black Israelite arguments. First of all, let me just say, I know this is going to be meaningless to people because I'm a white guy. Like, I really don't care what color skin the Hebrews are. I really don't. And I do think that there's a very good case to make that the ancient Hebrews, I mean, we're going all the way back to, like, say, Enoch. Yeah, they were probably very, very dark skinned. No problem with that. Though Adam, I do believe, was red skinned. I believe he was, probably if I were to say any modern person, probably like the Native Americans. That's how I envision Adam. Whatever. It is interesting here that I have multiple second century texts. They could be, second century, where they specifically say here that this person is dark like the Ethiopians, not the Egyptians. Okay, telling us that Hellenization had taken effect. We know Cleopatra was very white-skinned. The Egyptians were pretty much white. The entire Mediterranean region at this time had been whitened down. And so they're telling you this right here, right? So this is just, I'm telling you that this is evidence when people are saying, oh, Yahushua was black. Well, maybe he was, and I have no problem if he was. I just don't think he was. I think the man in the shrouded Turin, he was a olive-skinned man to a guy, Irish guy like me, that's pretty dark, right? I'm a little French-skinned, but I'm a white Irish guy. The Spaniards to me are, kind of more olive skin, right? South of France, very olive skin. Anyways, I digress. And when thou saw me, thou said to me with a loud voice, Marcellus, the whole power of Simon Magus and of his Elohim is this woman which dances. Do thou behead her. And I said to thee, brother Kepha, I am a senator of a high race. Okay, let's go on. No, I'll read this whole thing. And I have never defiled my hands, neither killed so much as a sparrow at any time. And thou hearing it did begin to cry out yet more. Come thou, our true sword, Yahushua HaMashiach, and cut off not only the head of this devil, this woman, this whore, but hew all her limbs in pieces in the sight of all these whom I have approved in thy service. And this is a New Testament era text, guys. Like they, always talk about how the God of the Old Testament, New Testament is so different. And immediately one like unto thee, O Kepha, having a sword, hewed her in pieces, so that I looked earnestly upon you both on thee and on him that cut in pieces that devil, and marveled greatly to see how alike you were. And this was Kepha's angel. So here you have a second witness. You have the book of Acts where his angel looked just like him. And now you have the Acts of Kepha. Even though this isn't in canon, it's still the same worldview that clearly the ancients believed that Kepha's angel was his doppelganger. And if you're not knowing where I'm going with this, I'm relating this to the stars. Is it possible that our star, I'm not saying we are the stars, because that's the big theory, right? The reflection of us, that could be true. I believe the stars are actual divine beings and we're not them. Wouldn't it be interesting if we meet our star someday and we're like, wow, it's like looking in a mirror. It's like our other half. Here's another example right here. This is from Yosef and Asenath, one of my favorites. Love this book. And this is Asenath, she, the future wife of Yosef. She repents, turns to the Torah, throws out all her unclean things. And she looks up and sees a man like Yosef in every respect, with a robe and a crown and a royal staff. Now, this has been mysterious for many people, and some people are saying this is Messiah or something of the like, that Messiah might have looked just like Joseph. It's kind of interesting. But he says this, and the man said, I am the commander of Yahweh's house and chief captain of all the host of the Most High. Stand up and I will speak to you. Now, who is this? Is this Michael, the archangel? Is this someone else? Or is it Messiah? Is it Yahweh? I don't think it is. I mean, he says right here, I'm the commander of Yahweh's house, and I believe Messiah is Yahweh, so I think it's someone else. And she looked up and saw a man like Joseph in every respect. It's his doppelganger. Okay, and here's going earlier. She described Joseph was wearing a marvelous white tunic and a golden crown and royal scepter in his right hand, whatever. He seems to match this angel. So there you have another one. Now this one gets really interesting. So now we know Joseph has an angelic doppelganger. We know Kepha has an angelic doppelganger. It's his guardian angel, the very person who releases him from prison. He looks in his face, and it's like Peter releases himself from prison. This is from the Testament of Yitzhak, and this is incredible. And then, of course, this is the context is the sacrifice, the what almost became the sacrifice of Yitzhak. It came to pass when the time drew near for our father Yitzhak, the father of fathers, to depart from this world and go out from the body, and that the compassionate and merciful one sent to him the chief of the angels, Michael, the one whom he had sent to his father Abraham on the morning of the 28th day of the month Mishri. The angel said to him, "Peace be upon you, O chosen son, our father Yitzhak." Now it was customary every day for the holy angels to speak to him, so he prostrated himself and saw that the angel resembled his father Abraham. So now this is Michael looking like Abraham. That's his doppelganger. Then he opened his mouth, cried with a loud voice, and said with joy and exultation, "Behold, I have seen your face as I have seen the face of the merciful Creator." Isn't that interesting? Why does Michael look just like Abraham, his father? All right. I might just cover this next week because Deuteronomy's all about the idols. So I'll just save this for another week, and I'll actually spend more time on the letter of Jeremiah because that's one of the books I haven't dealt with this year, and I need to. So let me just end on this note tonight, so you guys can know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Moshe in the promised land. Now, it's Moshe is not able to enter the land. Let me just read this passage again. "And I entreated for mercy from Al Yahweh at the time to say, Adonai Yahweh, you have begun to reveal unto your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For from what Al and Shamayam and upon Aratz is there who fashions like your words and like unto your military might. I would pass over, I beseech you, and I would observe the excellent land, which is the region beyond the Yarden, that beautiful mountain. And of course, but Yahweh, the ever-living, was angry with me on account of you and would not hear an answer toward me." And he's like, "Enough of you. Do not continually add any more plans toward me on this matter." And he basically lets him go in, stand on, the mountain and look across the Jordan and, see all the land. He could look down towards where Sodom and Gomorrah was. He could look over to Jericho. He could look over to the mountains in the north. He could look as far as Jerusalem. So it's kind of interesting because we see the same thing here with Abram, and you guys know the story. And Yahweh says to Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lot goes down to Sodom and Gomorrah, and he says, "Lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward and eastward and westward." And he tells him to go circuit the land and go scout it out and look at it all. Well, what was Abraham looking for when he did that? Well, we read in Hebrews, it says, "By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into the place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed." And he said, "For he looked for a city which had foundations, whose builder maker is Elohim." He's looking for, really, I believe, the hidden wilderness, the blessed land, the undying land, paradise, and of course, renewed Jerusalem, the brick and mortar Jerusalem from heaven, the city from heaven. I will point this out that if there is anyone that is still following me for whatever reason that is just anti-Torah, this whole section goes completely against the narrative. They just say, we just need faith. Well, you look at this here, Abel had faith, Enoch had faith, all this kind of stuff. Noah had faith. But you notice though that like and Abraham had faith. But in every case, the faith was faithfulness. If you were to strip away faithfulness from each of these people, you could no longer say they have faith. You can't separate faith from faithfulness. I cannot say this enough. I feel like somebody out there needs to hear that. Well, anyways, we know that Moshe could not enter the land. He could only look at it from afar. We know that Abraham could enter the land, but when he went there, he was looking for something that was not physically there at the time. And we read this in Matthew 17. After 6 days, Yahusha took Peter, Kepha, Yaakov, and Yochanan, Peter, James, and John, and brought them up onto a high mountain apart. And you guys know this is a transfiguration scene. And when he's there, it says, and behold, there appeared unto them Moshe and Eliyahu, or Elijah, talking with him. Now, I've talked about this passage about, time travel, that kind of stuff. But this just occurred to me just now. Guys, Moshe is in the land. He's in the land. And so now I'm kind of rethinking this, going, well, okay, because I made the case that, the connection that Yahusha, Moshe, and Eliyahu had is that they all fasted for 40 days. Now, there's the passage where Elijah fasts for 40 days. He goes to Mount Sinai. He meets Yah there. Moshe fasts for 40 days, and he meets Yah there. Yahusha fasts for 40 days in the wilderness, but the transfiguration is not till another time. Now, the connection, again, they all have is the 40 days of fasting. Now I'm wondering if when Moshe sees Yahusha HaMashiach, I think that there's a good case to be made when it's on Mount Sinai. But what if it's actually when he's standing alone on the mountain before he dies? What if that is the moment when he goes forward in time and stands in the land and sees Yahushua HaMashiach? That hit me tonight. I thought that was really a beautiful thought. I'm going to end on that thought tonight. So there it is. Okay, bye, everyone. And I did pretty good tonight on time. Thank you all for being here and coming to this and making this tradition in your home. And of course, all praise and glory to Yah. That is the entire desire of this ministry, is that that we would to give permission to you to be obedient to Yah. Yes, you break a law, you break all of it. That doesn't mean you just keep breaking them. It means you realize that you need a savior. That all the better reason for needing a savior, and understand what Yahushua HaMashiach did for us, is looking at his instructions in righteous living and seeing how far we fall short of those instructions and how righteous he is. And of course, the more you go through this life, the more righteous you become, hopefully, because you start walking, you become better. It's like, the first time you get on rollerblades, you get skin knees and elbows and hurt a whole bunch and crash into a couple of cars, and you can't stop and you go off the curb and it's awful. But the more you're on rollerblades or whatever, the better you get, right? It's the same thing. The more you walk as Yahushua walked, and you look at how he walked and you just focus on how he walked during that cloud of unknowing, the more you're there, the more you get this down. So that is my hope and goal for the people who are affected by this ministry. And I hope that Yah was praised tonight. Have a great Sabbath, everybody. I love you guys. Let's do this again.